Unfortunately, once again, we're in a position where not all of us has access to kit right now, and we're relying on bodyweight exercises to get our training in. And one of the key exercises in terms of our bodyweight is a press up. Now, many of us don't consider the press up as being challenging enough to be worthwhile doing if we're trying to get a significant stimulus through the chest and through the arms. But actually, if we adhere to the cues that I'm going to discuss in this video, it becomes a much more challenging exercise than we typically consider. Now, the three things to consider are posture, timing, and direction. So in terms of posture, when most of us assume a press-up position, I'm going to see this big arch in the back. Now, what happens when we do this is that the weight of our lower body just hangs out on our connective tissue, our ligaments and tendons through our back, and the weight is not transferred up to the working muscles of the chest and the arms. If we sort out the posture by drawing in the belly button, by tucking the pelvis and creating a neutral spine, the weight of our legs will suddenly have an impact on the musculature of the upper body. And the effect that that's going to have is going to make us feel much heavier, which means we're going to put more load through the muscles, and more load in this scenario is a good thing. It means we're going to get more of a strength stimulus. So instead of setting up with this big arch on the back that I see a lot of the time, pressing up like this, which is really easy, let's really work on the posture. Treat the start of the press up like a challenging plank, where we fill in all the gaps and we create a very, very straight spine. Now, the next point is timing. Now, along with our posture, we need to make sure that we're maintaining this all the way through, and we're bringing our pelvis and ribs down at the same time. If we just bring the ribs down, we're not really pressing our full body. Same thing with the hips. You see a lot of these compensatory press-ups taking place that just aren't challenging. If we bring the pelvis and the ribs down together, and we keep that posture at the bottom and press back up, it's going to be a much more challenging exercise. The other thing to note there is that on the press back up, it becomes harder to maintain that perfect posture as our upper body muscles start to fatigue. So it's very common to see people cue into this position, press down in a really, really lovely posture, and then arch to enable them to press back up. We want to avoid that. Squeezing the bum and squeezing the abs at the bottom, and then being patient on the press up, accepting the fact that it's going to be a little bit harder than usual, you're going to feel a little bit heavier, you're going to move a bit slower. Accepting that is going to make the benefits just multiply. The final point is direction. So the cue that I like to give for this is to kiss the ground out in front of you. So oftentimes when I see people doing press-ups, they're bringing their head down almost between their hands. If you saw someone bench pressing like that in the gym, you'd worry about two things. One, they're not getting stimulus on the chest, but second, they're probably putting their shoulders in a fairly compromised position. Same thing with the press-up. If we aim the head out in front, then we're going to get a much stronger stimulus through the chest, and we're going to have our shoulders in a much safer position. Now, obviously, as we project out in front, that doesn't mean we're going to put more strain through the wrists, which is why I've got these blocks here. So I just place the base of my palm on the blocks, I set up into my perfect posture, I take my time in order to bring my pelvis and ribs down together, and I project out in front. I try and kiss the ground out in front, gently, under control, and I take my time and press back up. Once again, down, keeping that posture on the way back up. Now, when I coach press-ups like this, I typically see the reps go right down. So I recently coached a group of rugby players. I asked them how many of you could do 20 press-ups in a row. They pretty much all put their hands up. And after adhering to these cues, only 2 or 3 of them could do more than 5 in a row. So that is the big difference. As you can tell, I'm out of breath just from adhering to those cues myself. We can get much more out of these exercises if we adhere to the cues and the biomechanics and get the movement done properly, and that way we can get much better stimulus without having to resort to kit or without having to do 50 or 60 reps in a row.